Hello everybody, it's Paul Nison with the Real Life Health Show. It is Monday, time for our featured guest, and this week's featured guest is, people keep saying my guests get better and better, and no difference. This week is one of my personal favorites, and you'll see why in a moment. But folks, now by the way, if you're watching this and you're not a paid member to the Real Life Health Show, you're going to get to see part one to this interview. But if you want to see the full interview, which you're going to want to see, you have to sign up as a member at the top of the screen, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you got to go to reallifehealthshow.com to see it. But everybody, take a guess what this is. And no, it's not a bottle. It's something in that bottle. You see that? There we go. That is something that came from out of my body. It is stones from my liver, my gallbladder, my liver. I mean, amazing. I don't know how many of you out there have ever done gallbladder flush, but boy, oh boy, it is so needed in today's world. And today's guest is probably one of the most knowledgeable teachers teaching about the gallbladder and the liver and cleansing the body in general. But his name is Andreas Moritz. And he wrote this book here. This book is called The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush. And it is one of the top 10 books I've ever read in my life. Top 10 important books I've ever read in my life. I mean, after doing the interview, I always knew the importance of doing the liver flush. And these stones, by the way, are not olive oil. These are stones. And after you see the interview with him, you're going to believe that and see that and know that. But, I mean, after reading this book, I'm going to make this cleansing a big part of my cleansing routine of cleansing the liver. Why? Because it is so important, and so many people, they'll clean their colon out, but they won't clean the rest of their body out. And this creates an issue because, it's not just cleaning the colon. There are so many other organs of the body, and the colon is just a sign of that. So we have to clean all the organs of our body, and the liver and the gallbladder is no different. So Andreas, he wrote another wonderful book on cancer. Boy, you got to get that. I mean, I just got a new supply of both of these books in stock. Rawlife.com. We have these books, but I mean, it's going to sell out. We're going to sell out of them. But I mean, you can get more, but you want to contact him. He's going to give out his contact information as well, and I'll put it below the screen as well when he comes on. But folks, sit back and enjoy today's video. Featured video on the Real Life Health Show, and every Monday we have a featured video, and if you've missed any of them from the past, you can just go back to the archives on reallifehealthshow.com to see them. So enjoy today's video, everybody, and have a great week. If you have any comments or questions, which I know you will, just post them below the videos, and until then, have a great day, and we'll see you again soon. Alright everybody, it's Paul Nison from the Real Life Health Show. Here we are today with another great guest. And it's a special guest that I've been wanting to get in a while here, so why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
My name is Andreas Moritz, and I was born and raised in Germany, and where I left when I was 18 years old. Now 57, and I have traveled and lived in many parts of the world, and in the last 14 years in the United States. And what I've done in all those 38 years of practicing natural forms of medicine is to identify the root causes of illness rather than being satisfied with merely suppressing the symptoms of illness, which didn't work out for myself because I suffered from terminal illness when I was a child, and rheumatoid arthritis, heart arrhythmia, a very dangerous form. And I collapsed every couple of weeks. I literally fainted and recovered after a couple of minutes. But the problems that I personally endured and went through, they were so severe that I was incapable of sustaining myself. Food wouldn't digest, and it created a huge amount of toxins in my system. That eventually my liver started failing and my kidneys didn't work. I swelled up terribly, that my body was so congested that there was hardly anything that worked. And so I began to look at different forms, the different variations of diet, and discovered that by making shifts in my diet, different things changed in my body and happened in my body. And eventually I became a vegan vegetarian, and within 6 weeks my arrhythmia disappeared, and I had no more rheumatoid arthritis, which was the juvenile form. My anemia disappeared, surprisingly, because my doctor said I suffered from low B12 and and iron deficiency, and so all of that disappeared. And so I realized that there is something to be said about how diet influences the human physiology. And in those days, that was pretty unheard of. We're talking about 40 years ago.
Sure. And currently now, how is your diet now? Are you still a vegan vegetarian right
Yes,
now?
I'm still, and my body doesn't seem to change very much. I have more energy than I had when I was a kid. And yes, I don't, if you looked at my body, you wouldn't think that much has changed in the last 25 years, except some change of hair color.
Now, other than, in your diet, how much of your diet consists of raw foods?
I would say I don't overly eat raw foods, but by the way, I eat a very, very substantial salad that has greens in it, and some cucumber and avocado and some seeds like pumpkin seeds. Um, and then I do eat some fruit, let's say mid-morning or mid-afternoon. That's about the raw part, and I do eat cooked vegetables, but I use a waterless cookware which keeps the enzymes and the vitamins intact, so it doesn't destroy the food just like normal cooking would.
Well, now, do you do take supplements since you're on a vegan diet, or do you find that not necessary?
No, I don't take any supplements. I've never done that. I always tried to maximize the absorption of the food that I was eating, and I discovered by optimizing my digestive system. I did that through my own liver flushes. That developed a system that would get rid of a lot of intrahepatic gallstones from the liver bile ducts. And by increasing my bile secretion, I discovered that whatever I ate, I optimized the nutrient absorption from that food, and that was certainly enough to supply my cells with the desired and needed nutrients. So I never took recourse to supplementation.
So there's many different aspects of being successful at this. There's you got to get the food that has the nutrients, but then your body has to be prepared to actually absorb those nutrients.
Correct. And with supplementation over the years, I found that many people, they are not, their digestive system is not capable of handling these supplements, because supplements are always harder and more difficult to digest than food that contains more life force and more fluids, liquid, than sort of extracts taken from these foods.
And one of the things you focus on is the cleansing and healing of the body's organs, specifically the liver and the gallbladder. You wrote a wonderful book about this. Now, there's many different types of liver and gallbladder flushes on the internet these days. Is yours just more efficient, or can some actually be dangerous?
Oh, they can be dangerous if you don't get the complete information about these liver flushes. For example, there are some on the internet that simply take an oil and then use some cokes, or strawberries with cream and things like that, and they can create a massive release of bile from the gallbladder. But without proper preparation, what can happen is that the stones will, and not relaxing the bile ducts, because there is something needed that you need to do to the bile ducts, so that the bile ducts don't get crampy. That means they are not contracting when a stone is passing through them. So the bile ducts must be very relaxed, like completely relaxed, letting any stones that come through them, that they don't get stuck there. Otherwise, you can develop a gallstone attack. And I know how gallstone attacks can feel like because I had 40 of them before I did my first liver and gallbladder flush. So, I had a lot of stones. My entire gallbladder was packed full with stones, and most of them were calcified. So oftentimes I had a stone simply by lifting something heavy or eating a more fatty meal. If I had a little too much butter or olive oil or something, then I used to have a gallstone attack. And so stones would get stuck in the common bile duct, and sometimes the stone was stuck there for up to 3 to 4 weeks. So I couldn't sleep at night, couldn't find the right position to sleep, and it was excruciatingly painful, particularly during night times. And so it's very exhausting. And so eventually, I discovered a way how to prevent that from happening. And there are also ways if people, let's say, eat a fatty meal and they have a gallstone attack, instead of going to the emergency room, there are ways to stop that right away by drinking a glass of Epsom salts and doing some other things like drinking red beet juice and massaging the toes of the feet very vigorously, perhaps putting an application of warm apple cider vinegar over the liver area, and it relaxes the entire liver area. So stones can pass. I've helped literally thousands and thousands of people with that simple information that they had a gallstone attack and they stopped it right away with these simple pieces of advice.
Now, if somebody follows the important instructions in your book, should they do is it different for everyone, or should somebody do as maintenance this on a regular basis, and if so, for how often?
Well, basically, you want to get rid of all the stones that you have, because if you're just thinking, well, now I got like 500 stones out of my liver, I don't have to do it again. There may be another 3 or 4 thousand in there. And what happens is that when you do a liver flush, stones from the rear parts of the liver, they travel forward to the exiting bile ducts. And there are two major bile ducts that are right at the exit before they combine into the common bile duct, into the hepatic bile duct. And before this happens, obviously a lot of stones sit there, and if you are not taking them out once again and again and again, so through a series of liver flushes, then these bile ducts get clogged up again, and you have the same problem as before. So typically, a person who does a liver flush finds that many of their symptoms become relieved. I had people that had incredible gastrointestinal issues and bloating, and so they felt like totally like a new person after the first liver flush, but it didn't last longer than 3 or 4 days. And then they realized that they had to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it until no more stones were coming out. And that's how you can get rid of things permanently rather than just temporarily.
So, how often would you recommend somebody do it? Every week, every month,
Uh,
or
I personally recommend to do it not more often than every 3 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks is ideal. It can be done every 2 weeks. I personally did mine every 2 weeks, but it can be pretty rough because the liver needs some time to repair itself. Because when you have stones in the bile ducts of the liver, there's a lot of pressure exerted to the surrounding liver cells and the so-called liver lobules. These are units that have very, very delicate structures to them. And if there is a presence of a large number of stones, it causes these lobules to become damaged and the liver cells become damaged to a point that you can find elevated ALS and AST levels. These are liver enzyme levels where liver cells break up and liver enzymes that are inside these cells get into the bloodstream, and they show up on a liver test, on a liver blood test. So it's important to not overdo it, not to think, well, let me just do one every week or so, because that can be very stressful to the liver.
So you're suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, once a month would be a reasonable
Yes, every
time?
3 4 weeks is very safe and very good to keep the momentum so that the new stones from the rear of the livers traveling forward into the exiting bile ducts don't get solidified and sort of impact these exiting bile ducts again.
Now, would that be for the rest of somebody's life or just for a certain time?
No, no, typically, well, it depends on the person, what kind of issues a person has. A person with rheumatoid arthritis, for example, needs a lot more cleanses than 6 or 8 to be clean. I personally, for me, it was 10 cleanses that got rid of 3,500 stones, and I was clean. And I've been clean ever since, and I did my liver flushes 15 years ago. I do a maintenance liver flush once a year now, um, because my diet and lifestyle are such that I don't produce any new stones. But it's still good to clear out any toxins that might be there in the liver, which are taken care of by yearly or bi-yearly liver flush.
Well, how will somebody actually know when they've done enough for them? Is it when they've done several and then they have no and they've expelled a lot of stones and then the more they do it, the less they have until they have none?
Exactly, and it's good to, if no more stones are coming out, to do another 1 or 2 liver flushes to make absolutely sure that there are no more stones left. And
And
so that's how a person will know.
and then you said about once a year for maintenance just to check.
Yes. Unless, of course, you are in a very stressful period in your life, because stress, by the way, changes the bacteria composition of bile, and that means the flora of the bile. And so when that changes, the person produces gallstones in the bile ducts. And so stress and diet, so the person continues eating junk foods and gets exposed to other kinds of environmental toxins or medication, such as statins, which are a leading cause of your gallstones, then you basically would have to do liver flush twice a year to make sure that anything that has been created in the meanwhile is being taken out.
Well, how helpful or do you not recommend or do you recommend colonics or enemas during the liver cleanse?
Yes, absolutely. Because when you omit that important part, first of all, you may not get many stones out of the system. For example, if a person is constipated and he does a liver flush. Now, constipation is directly related to poor bile secretion. Bile is a natural laxative, so it helps the bowel to empty at the regular normal intervals. Now, when a person is constipated, it shows there is not enough bile. He has quite a considerable amount of stones in the bile ducts of the liver and perhaps in the gallbladder. When the person doesn't clean out the colon before the liver flush, and I recommend to do it on the day of the liver flush, when he doesn't do that, then the gallbladder may not open at all during the liver flush, and that can prevent the release of stones. So the person may not have a very successful liver flush. And the reason why the gallbladder doesn't open is because when it's almost like a tube, a regular tube, if you close it at one end, then nothing can come in from the other end. So you have to open it on the one side at the end, with the rectum, and if there's a stricture or constipation, then it doesn't move and doesn't flow. So there is no vacuum you release in a way that allows it to be the gallstones to be sucked through. So the gallbladder may remain shut. So it's important to remember that when you do a liver flush, to clean out the entire colon beforehand, or at least have an enema to get some movement going, and then do another colonic or colema or at least 2 or 3 back-to-back water enemas within 3 days after each liver flush to make sure that the stones that still remained in the colon, which always happens or almost happens with every person, some stones will remain in the colon and they need to be taken out because they are loaded with toxins. And as they disintegrate and melt away, because these are soft stones, they're not like rock hard crystallized stones. They're soft, they're putty-like. They have a typically green or beige or yellowish color to them, and they in the warmth. If you put them out in the heat, they will melt because 90% of them are fatty acids. It's your fats, that have coagulated in the liver. Bile is, cholesterol, to a large extent. So that's why these stones, when they get passed, they float in the toilet. You can see them floating because they're lighter than water. But they are just as obstructive as regular gallstones in the gallbladder. They're just softer, and but again, they block the bile flow, and that's one of the key reasons for digestive problems and numerous health problems. There's just an endless number of health problems that can result simply from the congestion of bile ducts in the liver. It's unbelievable because the liver is an organ that is responsible for keeping the body clean. It's the body's filter. It's the blood filter. It's the primary blood filter that we have. And it takes contaminants and metabolic waste products out of the blood and passes them into the bile, and then the bile takes it down directly through the hepatic duct, that the main duct that comes out of the liver, which bypasses the gallbladder and goes straight into the small intestine, where it passes the toxins that are in the bile out into the large intestine for excretion. Now imagine if that function is diminished, the blood can no longer be detoxified properly, and instead the blood has to dump toxins into the delicate tissues of the body, and when the tissues accumulate toxins, they eventually won't be able to breathe enough oxygen, they won't get the nutrients, they start to deteriorate, and this creates an enhanced aging of the body, and aging in that respect will also mean increased incidence of illnesses. Wherever the toxins have accumulated most, that's where the damage will become more obvious, more apparent, and that's where we tend to get a diagnosis for.
Now, you said they would melt in the heat. Why wouldn't they melt in the body?
Well, there are a lot of bacteria, and the airborne bacteria are capable of breaking them down. In the liver, there's a certain, it's like there's no access to like an oxygenation where things like that can be oxidized away. In the body, in the colon, they will deteriorate. They will eventually break down, and that's why you so seriously warn people not to omit cleaning out the colon afterwards, because that sludge and that basically melting sludge releases a lot of the toxins that are in these stones. The reason why the liver makes these extra stones or these stones is to trap the toxins inside them, to keep the rest of the bile as it sort of gets produced and passes through some of the not clogged bile ducts, that the bile doesn't get contaminated, overly contaminated and becoming useless for the digestive process. So the body is very self-protective. These stones are not there by accident. They are there by purpose. There's a meaning, there's a good meaning behind them, but in the long term they of course become obstructive, and that can hinder the 500 or 600 different jobs that the liver needs to do every single day to take care of the health of the rest of the body.
Besides the enemas and the colonics, what's your opinion about the herbal colon cleanses out there?
In relation to liver flushes, or in general just to keep the colon clean?
Both. In relation to liver flush, do they help or hurt it? And just in general to keep the colon clean?
They won't hurt the liver flushes, but they are not extremely useful because they are mostly oral cleanses. And for the liver flush, it is better to, let's say, if a person does have a stricture in the ascending colon, an oral herbal cleanse will not open up the stricture, but a colonic will.
Now,
And and so in that sense, washing out the colon is far more effective for this purpose. But for, like there are some other cleanses, I personally not very keen on the the herbal cleanses that contain psyllium husk. And the reason for that is because when I tested this process about 20 years ago when it first sort of was discussed in the natural health field, and I tested it on a lot of people. And then these cleanses are supposed to produce a lot of fecal matter and ropes of fecal matter, old fecal matter. And so I tested it on a lot of people, on myself as well. And it's true, they produce these ropes, rubbery ropes of fecal matter. And when I examined them, most of them were expanded psyllium and bentonite clay. So because when you put psyllium husk and bentonite together and you put it in a glass of water, it swells up tremendously by hundreds and hundreds of times. And so it becomes a rubber-like structure, and when it passes through the system, it absorbs fecal water and, of course, some toxins, but it also acts like a broom. And psyllium husks have very, very sharp edges to them because it's a husk, it's undigestible, it cannot be digested by the human body. So it will act like a broom, and the delicate structures of the intestinal wall can easily get damaged by that. So I've seen a lot of people who take these things, eventually their peristalsis becomes very weakened if they discontinue them when that stimulation is no longer there. So the microscopic injuries all along the gastrointestinal tract are quite significant. So I'm very careful giving that advice using psyllium in powder form because it's still in microscopic form. You can still see a huge number of tiny little sharp edges, like crystalline structures to them. And so I prefer some milder forms. I've for many years recommended people to use magnesium oxides like collosan or oxy powder or oxyflush because it releases a large amount of oxygen into the intestinal environment, and it oxidizes waste matter and it liquefies the waste matter. It combines with hydrogen ions in the toxins and waste matter, and then liquefies the waste, and so it comes out in liquid form. But it's not like diarrhea, which can be weakening to the body, and laxatives have that weakening effect. Even herbal laxatives can have that weakening effect. So I prefer to use something that is actually more a cleanser rather than a laxative.
well, what about taking clay just by itself without any of the psyllium? What do you think of that?
It depends on the person who is taking them. I've seen the bentonite being beneficial in the so-called pitta body type. I've described that in my book, Timeless Secrets of Health and Rejuvenation, where that type doesn't tend to have constipation ever. But a person like the Vata type, VATA, who has more dryness in his intestines and he has very lower water content, he's a dry person anyway, dry skin, skinny, thin person, and more prone to constipation. And that person can actually absorb the water and become like a plaster in the intestinal wall. So not every person benefits from that. The people that have a lot of liquid going through them, they can take that, yes. It can be a great emergency relief if you get exposed to toxins or sort of poisons that are accidentally ingested or overdose of drugs. Yeah, I've seen incredible results with bentonite clay. I prefer the liquid bentonite clay that that you can buy, which is better, so the body doesn't have to look for water in order to liquefy the bentonite powder. So that would be a better choice. There's also charcoal, and in that case, you can use charcoal to absorb toxins or poisons very quickly, and it can prevent these toxins and poisons to enter the bloodstream and cause blood poisoning.
Well, you've mentioned that the liver cleanse can help people with digestive disorders, and I deal with a lot of people that have inflammatory bowel disease. How helpful is the liver cleanse, the liver flush for people with inflammatory bowel disease, and is it okay for them to take it during an inflammatory attack, or should they do it when they're not in that stage?
Typically, you don't want to do a liver flush when you feel weak. So, for example, people who have an infection, an acute infection, then it's better to wait until the infection has healed up. But if there's chronic inflammation, there are a lot of people who had Crohn's disease and did liver flushes, and they found it extremely beneficial because in the presence of bile, inflammation subsides or diminishes. So it's a great healer. It does a lot of things. There's a new study that I just came across that people who have asthma and sort of constant inflammation of their respiratory system, they found that when they had a hepatitis a hepatitis infection, and they suffered from jaundice. The jaundice healed up their asthma and their respiratory inflammation. So bile constituents, when they go through the system, and these are particularly, there are two bile pigments that help do that. And so bile pigments are extremely beneficial for calming down and reducing inflammation in the GI tract. The problem with the lack of bile, when there's insufficient bile coming out, hydrochloric acid from the stomach is not neutralized by the alkaline bile sufficiently, and it can burn holes in the intestines. So you can get a lot of colitis type experiences when you don't make enough bile, because the stomach still produces HCl, hydrochloric acid, and it's very burning. You don't want to drink hydrochloric acid, but that's basically what we do when we don't produce enough bile.
So you're recommending people with inflammatory bowel disease, for the most part, if they're in an inflammatory stage, it's better not to do it during that stage.
Yeah, so it's better to sort of focus a little bit more on the diet, but when there is no acute pain and these terrible cramps and things like that, then certainly liver flushes would be appropriate, because it will go right to the root cause of the problem. The inability of the body to you balance the acidity from the stomach through the mixing with the bile.
And there's many different reasons, from hemorrhoids to inflammatory bowel disease to other reasons to have blood in the stool. If somebody has blood in the stool, would the liver cleanse be suggested to be avoided, or would it maybe help?
It actually, blood in the stool is not a disease. It's actually the body bleeding. You're trying to bleed in order to get rid of pockets of toxins that have accumulated there. And so most people get frightened. Oh my God, I have blood in the stool. This is terrible. And then medical intervention stops that, which is one of the worst things you can do. It's better to let the body bleed it out, and then the body can heal itself pretty quickly. So, however, when there is blood in the stool, I would not do a liver flush, because a lot of toxins do go through the GI tract along with the stones, and you don't want to irritate that part of the body. So it's better to take care of other causes that have contributed to the bleeding, for example, certain foods that can be very harsh on the body. Like if you eat animal your proteins, like your piece of meat, the chances for the human body to digest more than 20% of that is very, very slim, because we don't have enough high enough concentration of hydrochloric acid in our stomach to digest the entire piece of meat. So we're not like cats that have like huge high concentration of hydrochloric acid. So when we eat the same thing, we digest only a fraction of that, and the rest of it, the 80% that are not digested, will have to be decomposed, and that produces what are called nitrosamines, very, very powerful carcinogenic poisons, and they get absorbed through the wall of the intestines, and if they're not absorbed, they can accumulate there, and they can cause severe damage to the intestinal wall. So when we, that's why we find with colorectal cancer, that people who eat meat have a higher risk of colorectal cancer than people who don't. So it's very, sort of the risk of being on a vegetarian diet of developing colon cancer is pretty low compared to people who are eating meat. So there are certain things you can do, reduce the sort of highly acid-forming foods so that the healing can occur, and then do the liver flushes once that has sort of been initiated and completed.
Well, you've mentioned cancer. In terms of helping people with cancer, how much so does the liver flushes help people that are dealing with different types of cancers?
Basically, you want to have clean blood with any kind of cancer. So you want to make sure that the blood filter, number one in the body, which the liver is clean too. Because if you have a dirty filter, you know what that means. You're filtering something, and more of the same toxins become released from the filter, and then they enter the fluid and contaminate it even more. So having a bad, unclean, dirty, filthy filter is not a good idea, because the filter breeds bacteria and parasites, all kinds of nasty things that may enter the circulation and the blood. So it's not a good ground to heal anything, including cancer. And it really works. I had recently an oncologist come to me, and he said, my wife, she has had breast cancer for 6 years, and she was lucky to be alive. And now the cancer had metastasized to the liver and to her bones. And he said, I tried everything. I've been in this field for 20 years, and I tried every new chemotherapy drug that was coming on the market that was promising, but it never worked. It's getting worse. And so I took one look at her, and you could see from her pale complexion, very grayish facial skin color, that her liver was totally, absolutely blocked, and all those drugs, the chemotherapy drugs, completely blocked her bile ducts. And so there was just no digestion. She said she doesn't digest anything. She just doesn't feel energy, and she gets bloated every time she eats, and pain and cramping. And so she did the first liver flush, and I've never seen anything like that. And it doesn't typically happen. I can tell you that, because millions of people have done liver flushes, and I get hundreds of emails per day of feedback, what people experience. And I've never seen anything like that. This woman lost 3,000 stones during her first liver flush, and it took 3 days of constantly clearing it. The liver bile ducts never closed down again, and the gallbladder never closed down. It constantly, and it emptied the whole thing. It was an unbelievable thing. And 3 weeks later, the doctor came back to me. He said, we did it. We tested for all the cancers, and there was not a trace in the liver. There was nothing left in the bones, and in the lungs there was a tiny speck of cancer left, a tiny speck, which he was very confident that would go away with during the next liver flushes. This was an extreme case, but it really shows the mechanism that the body can heal itself when it becomes decongested, when it can once again circulate enough oxygen through the system. A thick blood that is congealed and coagulated with all kinds of things that shouldn't be there. You're coagulating the proteins by having a lot of toxins in there and acids that you remain in the bloodstream. Then there's very little oxygenation of the cells, and so some group of cells with the least amount of oxygenation will succumb and will have to mutate into a different form of cell that allows them to live, and these are known as cancer cells. But they're not bad cells. They continue doing some of the jobs. They just have a different metabolism. They don't use oxygen to gain energy. They use glucose. That's why they have such a strong appetite for sugar. And if a person eats a lot of sweets and sugar, much of that will just keep feeding the cancer cells.
You mentioned that somebody, if they don't get stones when they do a liver cleanse, they're not doing it successfully in a successful way. Can everyone expect, if they follow your guidelines and instructions, to pass stones?
This day and age, people living in big cities, which are, you just open your mouth. People living indoors, there's a new study that shows that indoor pollution is 500 times higher than outdoor pollution, and they tested that in LA, Los Angeles. So you can imagine the contaminants. Recently, again, there were studies on children and newborns, and they found that on average, a newborn child already has 500 chemicals, toxic chemicals, in the bloodstream. So as long as we do have these things, because the blood is filtered out by the liver cells they don't, they're bathed in blood. It's not like in all the other organs in the body. There are blood vessels. They're called sinusoids, and they have little holes in them, so the entire blood moves through them and bathes the liver cells, and the liver cells then take toxins out of the surrounding blood, and then put new things in. They manufacture things. The liver manufactures tons of enzymes, and it makes sure that the blood is not too thick and not too thin. That there's enough iron in the blood, and if it's not, it will supply that. And it keeps track of all the hormones in the body, making sure that you don't have too many of one or too little of another. So there are so many things that liver has to keep track. So by dealing with the liver, you deal basically with the rest of the body.
Sure. And can somebody, if they have a gallbladder stone by their doctor, the doctor wants to do surgery or something else, if they follow the instructions in your book, can they safely do it at home, or are there certain circumstances where they should do additional testing before they decide to do this flush?
Well, I can only speak from experiences, my own experiences, having gone through 40 gallstone attacks, which didn't kill me, by the way. They felt like they killed me, but they didn't. And so it's a little overrated to say, well, if a person has a gallstone attack, his life is in danger. It's just that the pain is so excruciating that you panic, and then it sends you to the emergency room, and they say, well, it's stuck. There is no other way. And it's better to take out the whole gallbladder, and then take the stone, retrieve it from the cystic duct or the common bile duct. So the answer is that I would suggest first drink a glass of Epsom salts. In 98% of the cases, the bile ducts will become so relaxed because of that it will pass on its own. I've just heard it hundreds and thousands of times after making that recommendation. As simple as it sounds, it's just far more effective than anything that modern medicine so far has to offer. And in addition, putting a warm poultice, like a warm towel, but soaked in warm apple cider vinegar over the liver area, and it relaxes it. Massaging the toes, the little toes, the small toes, particularly the second to the last, the fourth toe, vigorously. That's the one that's where the gallbladder meridian ends, and just by squeezing that very hard, a stone may actually pass by itself. It also relaxes the bile duct, the common bile duct. So very effective things, strategies, and if nothing would work in the very rare case, then I would suggest yes, check in to the hospital because we don't know if a gallbladder is completely packed full, has perforated. But these are extreme cases. That means the person must have gone through many episodes of your gallstone attacks and bloating, terrible bloating, indigestion, chronic indigestion for many years to reach such a dire situation.
What do you say to people that criticize the the flush by saying it's just the oil that's coming out and not much else? What do you say to those people?
Well, they could do a simple test. I would suggest charcoal, and charcoal is a black coal, charcoal as charcoal is, and it's safe to take. There are zero side effects taking charcoal. So when you add that to the liver, the oil mixture, basically what you have is that it will color the oil mixture black. So the olive oil is no longer looking like oily or golden color, it will look black. And so because of that, when you do a liver flush and you are passing green stones, then you know that these green stones are not made from olive oil. That's a very simple test. Anyone can do that test, and I've conducted that test many times. Always works. So the stones are completely without black color. Whereas if you do, let's say, charcoal today, you drink that, take a tablet or two, you will find that your stool is becoming black. So it does color the stool. So it's not that you digest the charcoal. It's not digestible. There are many other tests you can do. We have sent, and others have sent the stones to laboratories, and they confirmed these were cholesterol stones, and they said green cholesterol stones. You can also have, there are pictures of dissected livers where you see the exact same colored green stones and sludge that come out through the liver, and they come out, during the liver flush, you can basically see that they are identical. There's other, a lot of people actually pass stones naturally, and I used to as well. I saw these green stones before I ever did liver flushes, when I had gallstone attacks. So some of them did go through, and they were the same green colored stones. And I never did take any olive oil and things like that. So to claim that you could possibly turn olive oil, even if you use the golden color olive oil, into bright green stones, is quite something that I never saw in the scientific literature that could happen. It's completely illogical. We are not a soapstone factory that we somehow can manufacture stones that stink. Anyone who has done a liver flush finds when you smell some of these stones, they have a horrendous smell, putrid, poison. It's like chemicals from, particularly when people do chemotherapy and they do liver flushes, they smell the chemicals of the drugs in the stones. Then there are people who have done a number of liver flushes, like 3-4 liver flushes. Many of them report already during the preparation period when which is used to soften the stones for 6 days, they're already passing the same stones, and there is no olive oil taken during that time. So it's definitely not from from the olive oil. When a person eats a very fatty, greasy meal, there's a lot of bile secretion, and a person who doesn't have any stones, he wouldn't make any olive oil stones from having that a lot of olive oil. I lived in the Mediterranean for 15 years, and in Greece, Cyprus, and on the island of Cyprus, and people there, they use olive oil like you would, you would think there's a soup, and most of it is like olive oil. It's literally full of olive oil. So they're eating a lot of that, and they're not producing green gallstones. In fact, it's been shown that people who have a lot of olive oil in their diet, they make less of these kinds of stones.
So, in terms of, you mentioned olive oil. Well, can people use a different type of oil, such as hemp oil or avocado oil, or is avocado the only thing recommended? And if so, is there one particular type of olive oil versus another you recommend?
Yes, I tend to propose that people use olive oil, and that's the first pressing, olive oil, virgin olive oil. But yes, avocado oil would be another alternative, because it's a fruit oil, and fruit oils are better than the concentrated seed oils. Sunflower oil can be used, and has been used by people who cannot tolerate olive oil. There are other oils that are colorless, and so they produce the same results, by the way. So I've tested that as well. Color stones, so it's irrelevant.
So,
But the olive oil has shown to be more effective, and that's why I tend to prefer that.
is there one type of olive oil that you recommend over another? Like, should it be refrigerated olive oil, or does it a dated olive oil? It doesn't make a difference.
No, like with every oil, it shouldn't be rancid. And the older oil is, the more likely it becomes rancid. Particularly seed oils, that become more rancid more quickly. However, and nut oils, obviously. But olive oil is less susceptible to oxidation. That means rancidity, and therefore one doesn't really need to be concerned about that. Most olive oils are suitable. If you have had it in the in your kitchen for 2 years, then yes, use a fresh one. Buy it from the grocery store. Most of them are okay. There are some that have other oils mixed into them, and but people who know olive oil, they detect the difference. They know that this is a punched oil that has other oils in them. There are some companies that want to make a lot of money from olive oil because it's more expensive, and they put soy oil in it. It still smells of olive oil when you open it, but it doesn't taste the same. I don't recommend those.
Does it say on the bottle that there's different oil other
No,
than just straight olive
no,
oil?
because they can say 100% olive oil. And then they don't have to say that that is not 100% olive oil.
So how do
Uh,
people
it,
know?
Usually people who know about olive oil, they can taste it. There is a difference, but the color, if if it looks like these commercial sunflower oils, which are like this bright, beautiful golden color, these are refined oils, processed oils. So stay away from olive oil that has the golden tone to it. It should have this greenish, sort of tone to it, greenish golden. These are that's a genuine type. Um, if a there are some brands that are coming out of California, and they are not so good, but I wouldn't want to give you the names of them because
Okay, sure, I understand. Yeah. So what about coffee enemas? Are they good for helping cleaning the liver or not recommended?
Yes, for people who cannot clean the liver, coffee enemas is a good alternative, but unfortunately it doesn't get rid of any stones. But it opens the bile ducts and allows the liver to release some toxins. And it can be felt quite immediately. You would feel after a coffee enema you would have more energy for a couple of days until the presence of gallstones will then again recontaminate the liver. It's just because it's like you're closing the exit doors and or shutting them at least to some extent, and it cannot the bile cannot sufficiently be secreted and eliminated when there are a lot of stones in the bile ducts of the liver. So it doesn't replace liver flushes, definitely. It doesn't even get close to it. It shouldn't replace the colon cleanses because the coffee enema only goes up to the rectum, and it's not a colon cleanser. It literally just opens bile ducts in the liver and helps to facilitate or prompt the release of more bile from the liver to get rid of some toxins that can come out of the liver.
Since it opens up the bile ducts, would it be beneficial to do a coffee enema while you're doing a liver flush?
No, because then that is a double whammy. The liver flush is already so effective; it gets rid of stones and toxins that are in the bile ducts as well. So it's not it doesn't do anything more than you're already doing with the liver flush.
Okay. Now, Epsom salt prepares a person for the liver flush, and it helps them cleanse them out somewhat. You recommend doing a colonics or an enemas prior to doing the flush. If somebody does the Epsom salt and they don't have a bowel movement, is there any need for concern or not necessarily?
Yes, if a person doesn't respond to Epsom salts, there may be a blockage in the colon, such as a stricture, and or there may be the person may have a tendency to constipation. So then definitely cleaning out the whole colon would be very important prior to the actual liver flush itself. The Epsom salts, which is basically magnesium uh, sulfate, or the use of magnesium citrate, which works quite as well, almost as well as Epsom salts, will keep the bile ducts open during the entire process. So you start off when you're 2 doses of Epsom salts before you do the liver flush in the evening, and then during the next morning you take another dose of Epsom salts. And so there are double function to the Epsom salts, keeping the bile ducts open so that the stones can travel easily without getting caught anywhere. And then the second function is to work as a laxative to transport the stones and waste down to the exit, to the colon and the rectum for elimination.
But if somebody is doing a good amount of fasting and colonics before the liver flush, nothing would really be there to come out during the Epsom salt. So that could just be one of the reasons why they weren't reacting, correct?
Well, if they are completely clean, then the Epsom salts will not produce much now.
Okay. Another question is, you mentioned that yourself, you've done many of these. I don't know how your diet was before you started doing these cleanses, but after you said the absorption of the food was much better. Did you notice a difference in the amount of food you needed to eat? Did you need to eat much less?
Right. I used to eat a lot because I didn't get much from food, so I tended to overeat. I've been a vegan vegetarian for 40 years now, but I was overeating the things that I was eating, and that created a lot of more problems. But I just craved it. I felt I needed it because I didn't get much energy from food, so I thought eating more, and I craved the food, so I was overeating chronically. When I did my liver flushes, the overeating stopped spontaneously, and then so I was eating never to the filling up my stomach. My stomach actually began to shrink because it used to be extended because I just packed in so much food. Um, and so my stomach became smaller, and so the need to eat the same amount of food as I did before was no longer there. And so I found that my digestion became so much more efficient, so I made better use of the food I was eating, therefore I didn't need to eat as much. And yeah, I eat very little in the evening. It's basically just a vegetable soup and maybe a piece of bread with butter on it, and that is totally satisfying. My breakfast is also pretty small. Lunch is my biggest meal of the day, where I eat fresh food. That means raw like salad to begin with, and then some cooked vegetables, very deliciously prepared, and some basmati rice or some other grain foods that I always eat enough fat with these foods and some spices and herbs, make it very delicious, maybe some coconut milk and things like that. And it digests extremely well. Sometimes I add some nuts and seeds or maybe some pulses, legumes, but not very often. And I don't have any deficiencies of any kind, no protein deficiencies. Uh, Muscles are strong, no energy deficits. I work from 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes to, unfortunately, to 10 o'clock at night. I sleep very well, never wake up at night. I used to have to go to the toilet 3 times, so my kidneys, recovered from, and my prostate completely recovered from the problems that I had, when my liver didn't work very well.
Well, you mentioned two questions there. You mentioned you've been a vegan for 40 years, but then you just said you had bread. You eat bread with butter.
Yes, that's the only exception. So I still consider myself vegan, but the only exception is butter, and I found it didn't cause me any problems. So I made the exception. It's not that I was a that I had like philosophical reasons to become a vegetarian. It's just it saved my life. I could not live anymore. I literally destroyed myself because of the protein that damaged my blood vessel walls. It caused a lot of heart problems and the rheumatoid arthritis. My blood circulation was so minimal that my toes were frozen even in the middle of the summer. My fingers were always cold. I could not get up from a chair or from the bed without feeling faint and having some blackness in my head, and so feeling very weak, and so I had to go sit down again and go get up very, very gradually. So my life is very much sort of walking on crutches all the time, and it wasn't fun. And so by changing the diet, that was the first time when I noticed a massive improvement, and so I stuck with it and said, well, if it can do that, and that saved my life, and they gave me 1 year to live. So if it saved my life and extended my life by 40, 45 years, then or 50 years, then I'm not unhappy.
Well, actually, I know my viewers are going to ask, how old are you?
I'm 57,
Great.
going
Wow.
58.
Okay. And you mentioned sleeping patterns. Did you notice a big change in how many hours you needed to sleep after the flushes?
Yes, I used to not sleep very well. So it's sort of hard to go by the length of the night because in the nighttime I used to have a lot of pain. So even if I didn't have gallstone attacks, I had a lot of shoulder and neck pain and headaches, and so pounding headaches that I didn't sleep well. And then my urinary bladder was just so contracted because of so many crystals from all the proteins I used to eat, uric acid crystals, that they started constricting my bladder, and so my bladder was filling up so easily and so quickly. So I had to run to the toilet 2 or 3 times every night, and so when that disturbed my sleep tremendously. So I was never really rested. So when after my liver flushes, it took me like 2 or 3 seconds to fall asleep, and then I wake up in the morning completely rested after about 7, 8 hours.
Wonderful. Now, tell us about the connection. Now, you said you've been a vegan for a long time. Do you take B12 supplement, or is there a connection with the liver and being toxic and B12?
Yes, B12 and there again, there's a lot of controversy, on the subject, because there is the idea that vegetarians or vegan, people, they have a deficit of B12. B12 is stored in the liver. The amount of B12 that we need, during a lifetime is about the amount of the top of a pinky nail. And these are basically bacteria, dead bacteria. That's where the B12 is. And we, in our gut, we do have B12 and we do absorb it. So when a person has digestive problems, that's when they develop B12 deficiencies. When the digestion improves, the B12 deficiencies disappear. So once again, it takes us back to the liver, and the liver regulates the digestive process. If you don't make enough bile, you don't digest any food properly. Most people believe, well, it's just there for fat, to digest fat, to emulsify fats, but it's not true. Bile is needed for every food. Why? Because we need fat to digest carbohydrates. Carbohydrates cannot be digested properly without fat. Proteins, which are always coming with their own fat, unless you remove the fat, like skimmed milk, which is a real nuisance, if you remove the fat from the milk, you won't be able to digest the protein. You need to have fat in protein and fat in carbohydrates to digest them. If you eat rice without fat, adding like butter or oil to it, it will go through the small intestine in record time. It will literally just go through it, and it will end up in your large intestine and ferment there. That means you will produce a lot of toxins because fermenting bacteria produce a lot of toxins. So it's important to realize that the bile is so important with regard to digesting any kind of food because it digests fat, and the fat is needed to digest other foods as well. B12 to be absorbed, there's a need for bile salts that also need to be reabsorbed and passed to the liver. And with lack of bile secretion, there are lack of bile salts. You develop a deficiency of all kinds of nutrient elements that otherwise would be there. I've never had a B12 deficiency ever again, ever since I became a vegan vegetarian. It's interesting that when people eat a lot of concentrated protein foods, they are actually having a higher incidence of B12 deficiency simply because they produce a lot of putrefied foods, and that clogs up the membranes and the part of the end part of the small intestine, the ileum, where the absorption of B12 takes place. So a lot of congestion there from undigested food is the major reason for B12 deficiencies. It's not that a person is vegan, vegetarian, or a meat eater. It's when the food isn't digested properly. That's the main reason for that. And that can happen to anyone. There are a lot of vegan vegetarians who are very ill. They don't look good. They're frail looking, weak. They're bloated all the time, have a lot of gas. They're just not on a good, balanced vegetarian diet.
What about probiotics and the liver flush? Is there any connection between probiotic supplements? Does it help the liver flush at all?
Not that I've found. It's a cleansing process. When you cleanse the body, you don't want at the same time to feed it. These are two different things. I always found that cleansing the body, the liver and colon and kidneys, and there's a kidney cleanse in my book, The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush. That's also very important because your kidneys, when the liver is not working well, the kidneys get contaminated very easily. When you cleanse the body, your utilization of the nutrients in the food are optimized. So you have a much better chance to generate a balanced probiotic environment that where you have the beneficial bacteria thrive and the destructive bacteria also be there but not dominate. And so that the beneficial bacteria keep the destructive bacteria at the right number for them to do their precious work. There are no bad bacteria, it's just when there's an imbalance, it's because either we are not digesting food well because there's not enough bile coming through, or we are eating foods that are contaminating our bodies outright.
Sure.
And that requires more fermentation or putrefaction. Like if you eat meat on a regular basis, it's well known that it disturbs the bacteria population in the gut.
Sure. The body gives off, the liver really produces enzymes. So will enzyme supplementation help or hurt, or is it good in general?
Uh, I'm always very careful recommending enzyme supplements because it's like giving a person a crutch. Um, it's better to train the body, retrain the body to produce its own enzymes, and it has nothing to do with age. Most people think, well, the older we grow, the less enzymes we make. Um, that is really a very non-scientific statement because we turn over cells all the time. We turn over 30 billion cells. That means we produce 30 billion new cells and we get rid of 30 billion old cells, hopefully. However, if there's a blockage in the bile ducts of the liver and the metabolic waste products are not removed properly, and the cells will not have the same capability of renewing themselves, replacing themselves in the correct intervals, then you will have a lot of dead cells accumulating or damaged cells, premature cells that are not fully developing. So all kinds of issues arise when this happens, and so I'm not in favor. There are some circumstances where people will benefit. They do need the crutches, like in real life, that sometimes you need crutches, at least for some time. But in the long term and as a general statement, I don't recommend taking enzymes to make the body's own enzyme production. You sort of put it on a back burner, almost like suppressing the body's own enzyme production. The thing is that when we put in substances or nutrients into the system, the body will look at what it produces itself and say, well, if that comes in, it's same for melatonin. It's a tremendous thing for jet lag and for some mental issues and for getting calmer. And so there are a lot of people take melatonin supplements. But when you do that, the body stops producing or reduces its own production of melatonin. So you become dependent on the natural the supplement melatonin. So it's not the same when we introduce something from the outside than we produce it. The body produces the enzymes in the right amount of enzymes in response to the right amount of bile. If you have less bile, the body also produces less enzymes to digest the food because it's not wasteful. It doesn't want to you produce like twice as much enzymes when it has only very little bile to play with. There's an interaction between pancreatic enzymes and the bile from the liver. And what is that? That interaction takes place right where the bile is entering the small intestine, because before the bile enters the small intestine, it mixes with pancreatic juices. And it has to do that because the bile activates the digestive enzymes that come from the pancreas. So without enough bile, if there's not enough bile around, these digestive enzymes from the pancreas, they may be there, but they cannot do anything because they're not activated by the bile. And so we should always look at sort of the larger picture and not thinking, well,
Sure.
I'm not digesting my food well, so I better take enzymes. And yes, they work. They absolutely work. People have less gases, but the long-term consequences of that are not known to the person.
Sure. Well, you're giving out a lot of information about your actual flush, and I want to let the viewers know we're not going to tell people what the flush is. We're going to tell them to get to your website and get to your books to find out the exact instructions of the flush, because there's more than enough information we have time for here today. So I want you in a second to give out your information, how people can contact you. But I do have one question about the flush. Some people do drink straight olive oil, and some people mix it. Do you recommend one over the other, or do you not recommend one of those?
I Yeah, it's hard to drink it straight. Some people really get very nauseated when they do that. The second thing is there is something in citrus juice, like lemon juice or orange juice or grapefruit juice. When you combine it with the olive oil, you have an enhanced effect. These citrus juices, they also open the bile ducts. They're known to do that. That's why lemon juice, is pretty good for the liver and the gallbladder. It's also good for the kidneys. So it also minimizes and reduces calcifications. So lemon juice is very good, but it's very supportive of getting a successful liver flush going.
All right. Give everybody how they can contact you, because you don't only deal with the liver, you deal with all types of cleansing. Give everybody your information, how they can contact you, website, phone, and also of your books, maybe the book they should get before all, or just all your books. Tell them your information.
Yes, my website address is Ener-Chi.com. That spells ENER hyphen CHI.com. ENER dash or hyphen CHI.com. And I've written 13 books. I've done a lot of healing modalities. You can find that on my website. A lot of free information, a lot of videos. And there's a link to my Facebook page. A lot of free information constantly being presented on that, and my blog site. Basically, from there you can access all the information that's needed if you want to delve into the subjects more.
Great. And in terms of weight issues, if people are having trouble putting on and take off weight, once they cleanse the liver, that'll definitely help them achieve their goals, right?
Yes, and because it changes the metabolism, and when you digest food more, you metabolize it better. You don't convert as much into fat. When people get fat, and have weight gain problems, it's not a problem. It's a solution to an underlying problem, because the weight gain helps to neutralize toxins. When people think, oh, these bad fat cells that I'm accumulating. Well, the bad fat cells are actually very good and helpful cells, because they accumulate a lot of toxins. And so they keep these toxins away from the bloodstream. So they're doing you a favor. So when you want to lose weight, it's important to first open the channels of elimination, the liver, the kidneys, and the colon. Otherwise, you're dumping, you're breaking down, forcefully a lot of these toxic elements. You flood the system, and they clog up the exit organs, the eliminative organs, and this can cause serious problems, particularly to the heart. So a lot of people get heart attacks when they suddenly lose weight. I've written a book called Feel Great, Lose Weight. Feel Great, Lose Weight, which is the other way. First, make yourself feel great. By cleansing these organs, you start feeling great. You lose weight automatically. You don't have to regulate your own weight. The body does that for you. It's designed to do that. The weight gain is a survival response. It's not a disease. Obesity is not a disease. It's a survival mechanism, and it should not be destroyed or targeted or manipulated. It should be naturally. It should happen naturally by taking care of one's diet, lifestyle, cleaning out the body, taking care of the basics, so that the body can regulate its own weight without any side effects.
And that would be the same thing for people that struggle with high cholesterol, exactly what you just said, flushing the liver.
Yes, Yeah, definitely. The problem with high cholesterol is not a problem at all. It's in fact never been shown to cause heart attacks. In fact, it is now shown that the statins, that's a brand new study to show that statins that lower the cholesterol, there's an increased risk of heart attack from doing that. Also brain damage, and now Alzheimer's disease. And now the latest study came out a couple of days ago. It's actually causing diabetes. Statins cause diabetes. So when you take the cholesterol down through artificial means, you create massive inflammation throughout the body, and that's signified by these inflammatory illnesses like Alzheimer's and diabetes. So you don't really want to go down that route. You want to go to the organ that is manufacturing the most cholesterol. When there's inflammation, you need cholesterol to patch up the wounds and to heal those wounds. By taking care of your health in this manner, you are reducing the chances of inflammation. You're eating less animal proteins, reduces inflammation throughout the body and throughout the blood vessel system. Then you have a much better chance for lowering the cholesterol. Our body will take care of it. It's not something we have to forcefully do, and then otherwise get a lot of side effects from doing that.
Great. And here's the last question, Andrew. Exercise, is it helpful in the body getting rid of these stones, and is it advisable to stop exercising during the flush?
No, you can exercise. You can do exercise on the day of the liver flush. Nobody wants to exercise. You don't have the energy to do that. So nobody will do that because it takes a lot out. It's like having surgery. You're clearing out stones. All the energy goes into draining out the stones. But before the liver flush, no problem. I'm not a great friend of exercising to push the body. 50% of the capacity, that is how far one should go, not more. If you can run 10 miles before you collapse, run only 5 miles. So just half of what you could do. And exercise should be enjoyment. It should really make you feel good, not make you feel tired or exhausted. If it makes you feel tired, you're getting congested from doing that. And it defeats the purpose. There are some studies to show that walking like 3 times a week reduces the risk of cancer by 50%, from Johns Hopkins University.
I just want to say you've been a wonderful guest. I thank you for joining us on the show. I recommend everyone get to your website. Before you go, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, you were a wonderful host, and I love your questions, and it made it very interesting. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I knew you would really enjoy Andreas, and if you weren't ready to get his book before, I know you're ready to get it now. So rawlife.com, get Andreas' book, and also get his cancer book as well. We're going to have him on the show again. I just confirmed in November. He's going to be on the show again, and we're going to interview him more specifically about cancer. But it was just a blessing to speak with him, and me and him both had to go, but we could have went on and spoke about for a very long time. And it was the first time I used this new software I got for Skype, so I believe the quality came out really well, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm excited that you are a member and you're joining the Real Life, and you joined the Real Life Health Show. So thank you again for that. Put your comments below. Have a great week. We have some great videos coming up this week, and if there's something you'd like to see or somebody you'd like me to interview, post it below the video and we'll get to it. All right, until then, everybody, have a great day, a great week, and a great Raw Life.